Hi guys, this is Ted Ellis, scholar in residence at Old Dominion University and historical artist. I'm here in Montgomery, Alabama. You can hear that train behind me. There's some symbolism and some history behind that train track right there. Right here I'm in front of the marker that was sponsored by the Black Heritage Council. Slave transportation to Montgomery, and I'll read it to you on this historical marker. In order to meet the high demand for slaves in Alabama, in the early 1800s, slave traders chained African Americans together in coffles and forced them to march hundreds of miles from the upper South to the lower South, including Montgomery. The overland transportation of enslaved people by foot was slow and expensive. By the 1840s, slave traders began to take advantage of two new modes of transportation: the steamboat and the railroad. Steamboats carried slaves from Mobile and New Orleans up the Alabama River to Montgomery. Rail routes constructed with slave labor connected Montgomery's train station to West Point, Georgia, and lines extending to the upper South. Hundreds of slaves began arriving by rail and by boat each day in Montgomery, turning the city into a principal slave trading center in Alabama. Enslaved people who arrived at the riverfront or at the train station were paraded up Commerce Street to be sold in the city's slave market. This is sponsored by Equal Justice Initiative in 2013. That's a historical marker that references slavery right here in Montgomery, Alabama. On the other side of the marker, I want to read to you the domestic slave trade. Beginning in the 17th century, millions of African people were kidnapped, sold into slavery, and shipped to the Americas as part of the transatlantic slave trade. In 1808, the United States Congress banned the importation of slaves from Africa. And at the same time, the high price of cotton and the development of the cotton gin caused the demand for slave labor to skyrocket in the lower South. The domestic slave trade was created to meet this demand. Over the next 15 years, slave traders forcibly transferred hundreds of thousands of slaves from the upper South to Alabama and to the lower South. Between 1808 and 1816, the enslaved population of Alabama grew from less than 40,000 to more than 435,000. Alabama had one of the largest slave populations in America at the start of the Civil War. Sponsored by the Equal Justice Initiative 2013, this is Ted Ellis speaking historical facts here in Montgomery, Alabama, scholar in residence at Old Dominion University. So as I continue my journey to Wilmington, Delaware, to be the inaugural artist for that event and presenting to the library systems in Delaware, stay tuned. This is Ted Ellis, historical artist, ambassador of culture.